Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited today because I think I start every episode that way, actually. I'm like, I'm so excited today because, I love podcasting and every topic is exciting. But today I have a special guest. It's my dad. My dad's on the podcast. And whoever's listening to this and is Polish, I call him Tata. So you might hear me accidentally say Tata because I'm so used to saying that. But yeah, it's my dad, and we're going to be talking about lens calibration. So it's a more technical topic because I know it's important to talk about because a lot of photographers maybe starting out don't even know what that is or why it's important. And it could be solving a problem for your images as well. If you're tending to see that your images are turning out of focus after a couple of years of getting your equipment, that could be the reason is maybe because your lenses aren't calibrated. Anyway, so I personally, my dad knows this, I don't like talking about technical stuff. I'm not a technical person. I know the bare minimum of what I need to know to get things done, but he is the person that is literally my whole life has been my like tech support and knows all this stuff and loves geeking out on it. So I figure this is perfect. He can teach you all this thing that I don't want to teach about, and you all can get some value out of this. So welcome, Tata. Welcome to the
Hi,
podcast.
Sarunya. Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
Oh. Okay, Sarunia is my Polish nickname for Sarah. It's like a cute way of saying Sarah in Polish. And fun fact, my business used to be called Sarunia Photography, which everybody was always like, what is Sarunia? What is that? Blah, blah, blah. And I got sick and tired of people asking me. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna change it to something that everybody can understand. But yeah, so I think let's get started, Tata. Just let everybody know what kind of photography you do right now, just so they can get a sense of that.
Yeah, hi again. It's nice to see you. I hope you have a wonderful day so far. What I do real estate photography. I started about 9 years ago, and I'm very happy doing this until now. I'm very successful. I have such very happy clients, and yeah, I'm very happy I'm doing this. And yeah, so this is what I do. That's the main focus. And I'm also graphic designer as a extra work I do for some clients, brochures and catalogs, logos, whatnot.
Awesome. Yeah. So one thing that I love, my dad is so detail oriented, and that's something that he passed down to me. And I love that I have that quality about me because he is so detail oriented about his customer journey, customer experience, the way he edits the images and the way that everything looks in the end. And so his like service is like top notch, and I learned a lot about that. He's inspired me throughout my life with that. And also, oh, fun fact, by the way, before we get into talking about lens calibration, my dad is also my biggest inspiration. I've told this him a bunch of times when it comes to how I document wedding days and how I document pictures, because growing up, he used to always just like document our lives, just like candidly, like whatever was happening. He'd be like, oh, I love this. This is so funny. Or Sarah's being so cute. Or, we're all just having a regular day-to-day family moment. And he would just like take out the video recorder or the camera and just snap those. And I didn't feel like I had to be anyone other than myself. And he wouldn't tell me, Sarah, look at the camera and smile. And I wouldn't like force a smile. I would just be doing my thing. And then as I was growing up, I noticed that so many of my friends only had those posed photos as memories. I'm like, oh, where's like all the photos of you, having breakfast in the morning or going to the park and on the swing and all that stuff. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I just don't have any of those. My parents didn't really take them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I like those photos bring me back to those moments so much that I'm like, I feel like I need to give this gift to the world. And so that's where it all kind of started, which is crazy. So thank you, Tata, for being
Well,
my
may
inspiration.
I add something? Back in the day, it wasn't that easy to take photos or capture video of those special moments. It was expensive, it was time consuming, but I always wanted to have the best I could afford. So I was investing in the best equipment I could afford. I was maintaining it. I was keeping Sarah knows. I was keeping it nice, clean, and updated whatever you could do to make this equipment perform. And at the end of the day, it pays off. And Sarah is happy with the photos and videos that I captured back then. Now it's much easier, but we still have to focus on quality, I think, and the customer satisfaction if we are talking about business.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting because you're so right. It was harder and more expensive, but also now it's easier to take those photos and videos, but there's a new problem, new challenge, which is how to manage all of them. Because I still need to figure out a process to manage all of the thousands of photos that I take all the time. Like in my personal life, it's like I need to, anyway, that's another topic for another time. But yeah, I'm so grateful that you did prioritize that. And yeah, I'm happy that it's paying off for you because you put a lot of effort into that. So I'm happy that you could see I'm happy with it. And now it's having a positive ripple effect too, then bigger than you probably could have imagined. So okay, so let's get into the conversation about lens calibration. So, first of all, how did you? So, my dad offers lens calibration services for photographers living in Ontario because no one's going to travel far to really to get that. So, we're based in Ontario, Canada. So how did you even get started with offering this as a service?
Well, the answer is quite simple. As you know already, I explained that I want to get most out of my equipment I own. In this case, camera I was taking photos with. So I always dig deep to find out what I can do to make my camera perform best. So one thing is a firmware update that you can always do. Most people don't even know that. But the other thing is I found out later that you can actually calibrate your lenses. It happened after a few years of taking photos. Then I got interested in that. I investigated that. I did some research. I bought some tools, and this is how it started. I was basically calibrating my own lenses first, and I was very successful with that. I gained experience. Then I calibrated Sarah's
Yeah,
lenses,
because I did not want to do that. I was like,
of
no,
course.
I do not want to deal with it. It's so boring. I don't want to deal with the
Yes,
technical shit.
it requires precision, patience, and yeah, and knowledge, experience. It comes with that too. So it requires that. So yeah, I own Nikon systems. Sarah also owns Nikon system, but I was calibrating. So I decided at some point, okay, it would be actually a good thing to offer this service to other photographers. That because I think it's really many photographers don't realize how important it is to calibrate your lens. You don't always need it, but it's better to check it if it's well calibrated, if rather than just using it not knowing.
Yeah. And I'm gonna get right into like the importance of it and why. But first, I remember I went to like the two camera stores here in Ontario, Vistec and Henry's. And like both don't, I was like, I want to outsource this. I don't want to deal with this anymore. Like my dad used to calibrate my lenses when we lived together. And then when we now are like half an hour apart, I was kind of like, okay, like I just for some reason I forgot. I forgot that he could help me with that. I don't know. He helps me with all the other stuff. And so I went to, Vistec and Henry's to get my lens cleaned as well, because I do that before every season. And then I'm like, oh, can you also calibrate my lenses? And they don't offer the service. They offer the cleaning, but they don't offer the calibration. And I'm like, what the heck? What am I going to do? I don't want to do this myself. And then I called my dad and he was like, I could do it for you. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, let's do that. And so he did. And then I realized, I'm like, wait, where are other photographers like getting this done? So yeah, I'm so excited that this is an option for everybody in Ontario. So now that you mentioned, a lot of photographers don't know how important it is to calibrate lenses. Why is it important? First of all, yeah, why is it important?
Well, the goal is, when you take a photo, the goal is to have the sharpest photo possible. That's the whole idea. Then every photographer is happy and is smiling, and the clients are happy too. So that's the whole idea. Now, this is why this is important. And like I mentioned before, many photographers are not even aware about lens calibration. So they are like they are struggling around, they are trying to troubleshoot things, they are looking around for the causes. And it could be as simple as lens calibration. Just bring it in. I can do it for you. And then at least you can be sure that the lens is calibrated properly, it's focusing properly, and it's performing at its best. So this is why this is very important.
Okay. And so photographers might not know this either. Every single lens has to be separately calibrated to separate camera bodies.
That's
so
correct.
Like if you have two camera bodies that you're always shooting with at the same time, or that you're shooting with in general, you have a 35mm lens, you have to do two separate calibrations as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the calibration is actually for the lens camera body combination. Okay. So you have to attach the lens to the camera, because lens calibration is probably somehow misleading for many people, because you might imagine, okay, lens calibration is like you take it to a lab, they take the lens, maybe they take it apart physically, they do something to your lens, something bad that is maybe irreversible, and you might be scared. It's not that. You basically attach the lens to the camera body and use the camera body settings to make certain adjustments to calibrate your lens so it's in focus.
Yeah, for them to work together smoothly again as a team. It's kind of like, after some time, maybe there's some like discrepancies and like things change and shift, and it's like, okay, let's get the camera body and the lens back together on the same page to create the best results. Yeah. And so, okay, so when does a photographer know when the right time is for them to bring in when to calibrate their lenses? Like, what are there any signs, or is it just kind of like, is there a certain number of photos after they've taken? It's like, okay, time for maintenance. Because I do it once a year, just because right before my wedding season. But yeah, should I be doing it more often? How often do photographers need to do this?
Well, you basically, you can see from the photos. Let's say you focus on the person's eye, or you focus on a special on a feature on a table that you want to focus on. You maybe do a macro of a photography, and then you process the photo, and the photo for some reason is not focused on the subject where you want the focus to be on. So we are talking about the focus shift, and you can either experience back focusing or front focusing. Okay, and this is when you really see that effect. You should know that it is time to calibrate your lens. Basically, based on this. Let's say you focus on person's eye, and when you develop your photo, the focus is on the ear, maybe on the nose, or maybe it's not sharp. Because I was lens calibrating for some clients where the shift was so big, the whole face was out of focus.
I've had that before, and it was so frustrating, and it was like,
and somebody
where it's like their body, it's like, because people's faces are, because aperture, especially if photographers are shooting at a low aperture, f2, f1.4, 1.8, like the person's nose and face is actually a little bit more forward and ahead from the body plane, and so it's very frequent that people are just like focusing on the body in general, because they're like, oh, that person will be in focus, but then you like zoom, like the face is a little softer, and you're like, why is their face out of focus? That's the reason.
Especially when we're talking about the wide aperture. the wider aperture there is, you need more precise focus.
Yeah.
Because of the shallow depth of field, you need that focus, right? To be sharp, to be dead on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like sniping.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you were to take it as an extreme example, let's say, you try to like calibrate your lens, but you're like, let me just see what would happen if I totally did the worst thing possible and fully uncalibrated it. Like the lens and the camera body are working so opposite of each other that it's going to be just terrible, not in focus. This could mean that, for example, if you're at a wedding and you're taking a family photo, you could literally be focusing directly on that plane of all those people standing there in a row, focus on it and be like, yep, it's focused in the viewfinder, right? And then you take the photo and then it's literally, they're all out of focus. The tree in the back is fully in focus. That's the extreme example.
That's the extreme example, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe if you're experiencing that and you're like, why are my images out of focus? It's driving you crazy. I hope you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I didn't even know this. And this could solve everything. So this is why we're recording this podcast. Okay. So you're basically saying that like you should just do it as often as soon as you start to see the focus kind of shifting a little bit in your photos, that's when you just need to go get them calibrated. It's not like, oh, once a year, every single time. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, that's the one thing that you can actually recognize the issue, that you know for the fact that your lens was performing better. You have that experience with that lens, and then you see that shift. That's the one thing, one idea. But then also, what happens when you buy a new lens?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know that lens, right? Especially how it works together with your camera, as we talked before. It has to work together with your camera. We're talking about DSLR cameras right now, and this is So I think personally, it's a good idea, even if you buy a brand new lens, to bring it for calibration.
Mm-hmm.
It's really up to you, but you will never know if the lens is performing at its best with your camera together.
Yeah.
And to know, you should actually do the lens calibration, and then we will give you the results, right? If there was a shift, there was no shift, but at least you have that knowledge that your lens is calibrated, it's working well.
That's true. I actually didn't even think about that because it's been a while since I bought a new lens. But yeah, then you're kind of just like running the risk. You're just kind of like gambling, like, oh yeah, hopefully it works properly. You could take test shots and really zoom in and like see and test all the different apertures. That's possible. That's an option too.
It also, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so it also depends how many photos you take, right? How busy you are as a photographer. Mm-hmm. More photos you take, because of the simple wear and tear of the equipment, you need to perform those, to do the lens calibration more often, even twice a year, mm-hmm. I would say. Too many times I have heard crazy stories that somebody was doing lens calibration once a month.
Oh, wow.
So, that's extreme, in my opinion, from my experience. But then, also depends how often you change, lenses. If you have one lens attached to your camera all the time for the whole year, once a year is fine, right? When you are off season, you can do that. Then also depends if your camera is exposed to shakes and some, extreme environments, like cold and hot temperatures.
So like destination weddings, shooting and different traveling.
Humid, dry air, all this affects internal parts of the camera, believe it or not. Everybody knows materials expand and contract, and shakes, I don't have to explain. If you expose your camera to lots of shakes, things can misalign inside, right? Mm-hmm. Then it's important, this is the most important thing for people that take a portrait, do portrait, photography, micro or macro photography, because this is when you need that sharp focus. Mm-hmm. It's not so important for landscape photography, because you don't use a wide aperture, and you don't care if the shift is like half a meter, off.
In the whole landscape.
In the whole landscape.
It's not
the big deal. unless you focus on some leaves on the tree or like wide live photography.
Yeah.
That's important too.
Yeah, like zoom, like really like 300 millimeter zoom lens, like
Yeah.
that has to be sharp because the bokeh happens automatically with that. Yeah. Okay. That's great. I learned a whole bunch of stuff right now. I didn't even think about different temperatures and all of that, like humidity and everything affecting that. So I just learned something new too. Okay, so now let's talk mirrorless because photographers are either considering mirrorless, already have mirrorless. It's like we're in that kind of like transition phase where still a lot of people use DSLR, some use mirrorless, but yeah, fun fact about those of you that have a mirrorless camera, maybe we should have mentioned it from the very beginning, but you don't have to calibrate your lenses. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. People are asking. I've got some requests. People were contacting me about calibrating lens, and when I asked about the equipment, they told me that they own mirrorless camera. So mirrorless camera, the short answer for lens calibration is no, you don't require that.
And what's the long answer of why? Or it doesn't have to be long, but why?
No, why? It's a short answer really, because how mirrorless cameras calculate the focus. It happens on the image sensor, the same sensor that takes the photo. I mean, that captures the image. So because it's the same sensor, there's no any chance for misalignment or shifts or anything.
Yeah. Okay. So because the sensor doesn't rely on another part in the camera,
exactly,
there's no relationship between the two.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, okay. That sensor is made with that function already in there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's easy. And for people, for people with mirrorless cameras, is there any other like maintenance things they should be doing?
Well, it's hard for me to give you any advice. You should really refer to the camera manual because each camera is different. But what I can suggest for everybody, DSLR cameras or mirrorless cameras, to check frequently for firmware updates. It's very important.
I'm the worst.
Very important.
Oh my God. Now that you tell me that, I don't think I've ever done a firmware update on my camera. My dad, anytime he comes over to like help me with my computer stuff, my server, like stuff I hate, he's like, Sarah, you haven't ran an update on your computer in 3-4 months. I'm like, I don't know. I don't like it. I'm weird.
Yeah, it is crucial. Trust me, go to the manufacturer's website, to your camera model, look for downloads, software downloads, and firmware upload. It's very easy to do. Once you do it once, you will have no reasons not to do it again. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but especially with new cameras, obviously nothing is perfect. So they try to improve it. There are some bugs, there are some things that are affecting, how you work with the camera. So it's really, really worth it to check it from time to time and see what's available.
My brain just doesn't, I can't, like, I don't understand how a camera it's a piece of equipment that we're holding in our hands, can be updated from the air and all of the updates can be down. Like, I don't understand.
Well, it happens not over the air. You have to download it on the memory card.
But, oh, okay. And you put the memory card in? Oh my God. I was like, how do you anyway, even like updating a phone, but at least a phone is connected to the internet. So that kind of makes more sense to me, but I still don't my mind can't compute how this works, how this world works with technology. I'm sure there's a bunch of like, if you listening to this that are the same, that are like, I don't understand how a picture shows up on a screen from data going through wires. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, talk to my parents.
Oh yeah. My grandparents are like, I don't understand like how
any of it.
Witchcraft.
Yes, it is magic.
Magic. Yeah, I like that word. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. Do you have anything else that you think photographers should know on this topic? I feel like we covered everything.
Well, probably one thing, because I have experience with Nikon and Canon systems. and with Canon and Nikon lenses. I just wanted to be upfront with you guys. I know that Sigma lenses require a completely different approach to lens calibration. They require a special hardware, and the calibration is very time consuming. So I never did that. And for now, because I don't have many requests, maybe I had one request to calibrate Sigma lens, that I had to deny that, unfortunately, because for me, basically makes no sense to purchase that special equipment to calibrate just Sigma lenses, and it's time consuming. So for you guys, it would be quite expensive. So, and my goal is to offer my lens calibration services for you guys, so the service is accessible and it's affordable. I'm not charging a leg and an arm and a leg for it. And I try to work with my clients in such a way, in terms of appointments, that if they come from far away where I live, I try to accommodate them so they can wait while I perform the lens calibration.
Like go get a coffee or go to the store for an hour.
I mean, they can go whatever they want. They can go to the mall or cafeteria. Usually takes an hour, depending obviously how many camera bodies and lenses I have to calibrate. But it's between 1 hour and 2 hours, and depending obviously on my schedule too. But I try to accommodate as much as I can. So that's one note. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So Canon, Nikon systems with Canon and Nikon, lenses, any lenses, I had no issues with. And from my experience, like I mentioned before, some shifts were so big, it was unbelievable. It was definitely worth it for the photographer to make lens calibration done.
You can feel like revitalized and excited as an artist again, and like the creativity just comes back, the excitement, because you're not, coming home and looking through all the pictures frustrated and like, I have the skill to make this sharp, but why isn't it, so you don't have to settle for your equipment letting you down.
Also, it's probably worth mentioning that some lenses are sharper than the other. More expensive lenses are sharper. Less expensive lenses are less sharp. So even if you experience that with the cheaper lens, or maybe not as good lens, you don't get that sharp image. It might be just the lens itself. So even if you bring it over for lens calibration, and I will check with my equipment and everything, I will take a few test samples, and in my case it will be dead on. The focus will be dead on. But the lens, because of the glass used in the lens or whatever, it's not the sharpest lens in the world.
Let me guess, is it the 50 millimeter 1.8 lens that you have that with?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Because that's like a $200 lens. I remember. Yeah. But it's great. I mean, for that amount of money, it's a great. I'm happy with that.
It's a great lens. Good lens for that money. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any other lenses that come to mind?
Yes, I was calibrating macro lens. I'm confused because sometimes they call them micro, sometimes macro lens. I think it's a macro lens. Yeah, and it was unbelievably sharp. It needed some adjustment, but it was so sharp. I could not believe what I saw. Really, it was really sharp.
Yeah.
So that's all I really have to say, unless you have more questions.
No, that's awesome. Oh yeah, one thing I did want to mention, because I once invested in a 35 millimeter Sigma lens a long time ago, because it was like about half the cost of a Nikon 35 millimeter lens. And so I just wanted to save on money. But for 2 years, I had I think for a year, it was great, sharp, all of that. And then after that, it just kept going downhill. I even took it to Sigma for them to service it. They said they serviced it, everything was good, but then it was still so off. So my experience with Sigma lenses has been, they're great for a year and then they just go downhill. I've heard this a lot from other photographers. So if you're right now trying to figure out what lenses to invest in, ideally you're just going to save more money and time in the long run if you do pay for the proper lens. And one option that I mention a lot to people in my DMs, and people ask me just about like, oh, like how, like, I don't know if should I pick this lens or this lens or this camera body or this camera body. I'm like, always go for the best, maybe have fewer tools, but go for something that will last you longer. And the way that I do that is I actually do a lease to own option. So you can figure out, I don't know anybody, I don't know like outside in other countries, but here in Ontario, you can go to Vistec and ask them like, hey, how can I, make payments for 2 years on this new camera body? For example, you'll be making like maybe $200 a month payments, 150, whatever. And then at the end of that lease, you literally just like pay an extra fee. It's like $10 plus it was a little bit of interest along the way. $10 and then you own it and then it's yours. And that's been amazing because a lot throughout my career, instead of me investing all of my money that I want to reinvest into my business into gear, and it's just dropping like $5,000, and it's like, no, I don't have any more money to invest in a better client experience or in education. That's what has helped me grow my business so much faster, because I'm able to invest in a better client experience, which leads to more referrals, which leads to charging more money. And then on top of that, investing in my education, which allows me to become a better photographer and charge more money for my services. So that's another tip. This episode is like all about equipment. And so I thought I would put that out there because a lot of people are like, I did not know that was an option. So just know that that's an option, figure it out. I think I've reached out here in Ontario. It's called Equilease, EQUI. So Equilease. And you just reach out to them and then they figure out a thing with a Vistec, and then you can do that lease to own. So just wanted to throw that in there because something told me to. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So Tata. Oh, by the way, my dad's name is Derek. I introduced him as Tata into this episode. So his name is Derek. And so how can people connect with you if they want to inquire about your calibration services?
Yeah, it's quite simple. Like these days, you just go to my website, which is Darex Studio, which is DAREX studio.com. There's a contact me form there. There's a phone number there. I would definitely be happy to hear from you. You can send me an email or send me a text message. If you must, you can call me.
But don't call him before like 10 a.m.
I might be busy or might be sleeping in the morning. I am sleeping in quite often.
Night owl. He's a night owl.
Yeah, I'm a night person, so I work late usually. I just want to have my clean slate in the morning, so I finish everything at night. So if I have nothing scheduled for the next day, good luck with calling me in the morning. So that's how you contact me, and then we'll just schedule an appointment, and that's how it goes.
Awesome. Yeah. And for anybody I'm going to put the link in the show notes. So again, his website is Darex Studio. So DAREX studio.com. And that's pretty much it, everybody. Thank you so much, Sata. This was awesome. I didn't realize, I thought this would be like a quick 15-minute episode. So I'm like, technical stuff, like, oh, well, it's going to be quick and easy, but I'm like, oh, there was actually a lot more to know than I thought.
We all learn something every day. I even learned something from you today. So
you what?
I learned something from you too today.
What did you learn?
About how you buy expensive equipment
and reinvest my money.
And reinvest money in something
way.
else, and then at the end of the financing period, you just pay a small amount of money to own it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a game changer. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tata.
Thank you for having me. It was nice talking to us as always.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Okay, so before I officially wrap up this episode, I just realized we didn't chat about, how to calibrate your lenses when you want to do it yourself. And I mean, the idea didn't even come to me because I'm just so already kind of wired for outsourcing tasks that I don't enjoy doing or that could save me time, so I can spend more of my time either marketing my business or actually shooting and doing things I love most, that I totally forgot, if you do actually want to try it yourself, there is a way for you to do it at home, and it can be cost effective. There's an initial investment, and it can be cost effective. But again, I truly believe that, our time is our most valuable asset. So you would actually be losing more money by losing time on being able to market your business or do other things that will actually bring you more bookings, more revenue if you spend your time, your valuable time doing things like these. But I still wanted to share that you could do this at home because some of you might actually enjoy this, right? I have to remember that some people actually enjoy technical tasks and being able to do like hands-on work like this with their gear. And so if you're like, but how the heck do I calibrate it myself? Or if, I'm out of Ontario and I can't use your dad's services, or, if I'm out somewhere else and I just don't want to outsource it to someone else, how can I do it myself? So pretty much all you need is a tripod, your gear, obviously your camera bodies, your lenses, and then just literally search on Google lens calibration tool, and it's going to pop up. It's going to show up this little like black and white thing with like this ruler on the side that goes at an angle. That's the tool that you use along with your tripod that you have placed to be able to see if things are calibrated properly, if not, and all of that. I'm not going to, explain a tutorial about this because heck, I don't even know how to do it properly. But, YouTube, that's what we have YouTube for. So if that interests you, if that excites you, if you want to do something like that yourself, then you can grab that. I see they range anywhere from like $50 to $100, depending on the tool that you choose. And then, yeah, just go on YouTube, see how to do it, and then you could do it yourself. So I just wanted to pop that in there in case anyone's like, yeah, but how do I do it myself? And just keep in mind, if you do want to outsource this and you're outside of Ontario, just go into like local like Facebook groups and ask, hey, does anyone use anyone to calibrate their lenses? Like, can you give me their contact details, anything like that? And hopefully you can find a person in your area, or maybe, a local camera store in your area offers it. So I hope that helps. And I hope that this episode helped you hopefully bridge the gap between being like, what the heck is going on with my blurry images? And now you're like, oh my God, was this the solution all along? So that was my hope for you for this episode. And I can't wait to hang out with you next week. Bye. Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning into this episode. If you got value out of it, please feel free to message me on Instagram at Sarah Monica Photo. That's Sarah no H, Monica with a K, photo, to let me know. I get so freaking energized hearing from others that what I've said has had a positive impact on their lives. Also, make sure to hit subscribe to the Shine and Thrive podcast to never miss an episode. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm sending you all the productive vibes your way so you have the best week ever.